In Palestine, Israeli occupation forces continue to intensify its attacks on several areas of central and southern Gaza. In Russia, 24 civilians were killed as a result of the Ukrainian shelling of the city of Belgorod. In addition to 107 people were injured of varying severity, including children. The world is already celebrating the new year 2024 with impressive light and fireworks displays. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. New airstrikes carried out in Palestine by Israel's occupying forces leave at least 130 civilians killed and dozens wounded, including children and women. This Sunday, health authorities reported a new airstrike in Al-Saytu neighborhood in the north-central Gaza Strip. They also reported at least 12 massacres during the last 24 hours in civilian residential areas located in the surroundings of Al-Aqsa University. In this regard, the official balance confirms an increase to over 21,822 people killed by the Israeli regime, while the number of wounded has risen to nearly 56,450, in addition to the thousands of people missing, women and children included. The Palestinian economy collapsed during the last quarter of the year due to the Israeli aggression against Gaza and the West Bank. The Central Statistics Bureau pointed out that during that period, the GDP fell by more than 80%, while the unemployment rate rose by more than 74%. At the same time, the Bureau noted that the decrease in the gross domestic product is a consequence of the destruction of the territory, in addition to the systematic incursions in the West Bank. The spokesman for the Regional Office of the United Nations Development Program, Abdallah al-Dardari, detailed that the losses are immeasurable, given that the damage to infrastructure has destroyed almost 19 years of human development. And we continue in other news. The United Nations reported that more than 100,000 displaced Palestinians arrived in Rafah, southern Gaza Strip, in the last few days. Thousands of families are camped in overcrowded and unsanitary conditions after losing their homes to Israeli bombardment. The displaced were arriving at the site in trucks, cars, or on foot, carrying the few belongings they managed to save. Many of them did not find a place in the already overwhelmed shelters and claim that there are no safe places. The unprecedented Israeli air and ground siege against the Palestinian population has displaced some 85% of the 2.3 million residents of the Gaza Strip. Hundreds of people were stuck in France after train services to London were temporarily cancelled due to flooding on the railways. The company that links the United Kingdom with continental Europe through the Eurotunnel announced this Saturday the temporary suspension of the railway service due to high temperatures while the situation is being solved. At least 14 services between Paris, Brussels and Amsterdam were affected by the measure applied. However, as a palliative to the delays, the company offered a webpage to inform about the status of the trips, as thousands of passengers are at the London station of St Pancras, where trains are waiting for journey's resumption. In China, recovery work progresses in the areas affected by the 6.2 magnitude earthquake that shook the province of Gansu last week. Local authorities and institutions built a total of 15,812 prefabricated houses to provide shelter for the residents affected by the earthquake a week ago. They also completed 1,165 prefabricated houses which function as school spaces, allowing children to receive their classes while the damaged academic buildings are being repaired and reinforced. For its part, the Communist Party of China, different ministries and the central government allocated millions of dollars in assistance funds to help in the relief efforts. Let's take now a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. In Bolivia, the Plurinational Constitutional Court issued a decision rejecting the existence of indefinite re-election in the country, saying that it is not a human right. The TCP issued Constitutional Resolution 1010-2023, according to which indefinite presidential re-election does not exist in the country. Likewise, the TCP made prevail the advisory opinion made to the Human Rights Inter-American Court with the purpose of interpreting the scope of indefinite presidential re-election in the context of the Inter-American system of human rights. Previously, in 2017, former TCP magistrate had authorized former President Evo Morales to run as a candidate with the argument that, according to the same court, re-election constituted a human right. In Russia, 24 people have been killed and more than 100 wounded in the bombardment of the city of Belgorod by the Ukrainian armed forces. The army of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky attacked with multiple rocket launchers provided by the United States and other NATO member countries the Russian city of Belgorod, located some 30 kilometers from the border. Authorities say that at least 4 children were among the dead. Although the Russian anti-aircraft defense managed to shoot down most of the projectiles, some fragments hit several houses and electric transmission lines. The province of Belgorod has been so far the most affected by the conflict in the last month, with several incursions of Ukrainian sabotage groups and continuous attacks on border municipalities. Russian armed forces in Kharkov overthrew the organizers and responsible for the bombing in Belgorod. A new high-precision missile attack on the former Kharkov Palace hotel complex eliminated a representative of the Defense Ministry's main intelligence directorate actively involved in the organization of sabotage operations on Russian territory. On the other hand, field bases were destroyed in Kharkov regions, from where groups of Ukrainian troops were being supplied en route to Kharkov and Orekov. As a result, Kiev suffered significant losses, where 2 launchers were destroyed, with the help of which the Kiev regime was planning to launch missile attacks against the Russian city of Donetsk on New Year's holidays.
In response to the terrorist act, the armed forces of the Russian Federation struck decision-making centers and military facilities in the city of Kharkiv, which were used by the criminal Kiev regime. A high-precision missile strike on the former Kharkiv Palace hotel complex killed many top commanders of the Ukrainian army who were directly involved in the planning and execution of the terrorist act in Belgorod. There were also up to 200 foreign mercenaries who were scheduled to be involved in terrorist raids on the territory of the Russian Federation border in Ukraine. High-precision missile strikes on the building of the Ukrainian Security Service in the Kharkiv region and the temporary deployment site of the Nationalist Right Sector formation killed representatives of the Ukrainian Domestic Security Service, SBU staff, foreign mercenaries, and fighters of the Kraken unit.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. For a short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. New Zealand was one of the first nations to welcome 2024 with a light show from the Sky Tower and the Auckland Harbour Bridge. New Zealanders took part in the celebrations to welcome 2024. As usual, the countdown was announced from the capital city of Auckland in northern New Zealand, where people enjoyed the fireworks exploring the night sky. The top of the Sky Tower was lit up in majestic colors to mark the celebration. The whole display was broadcast on local television and digital platforms so that those not present at the tower could enjoy the celebrations. In Australia, people enjoy a masterful fireworks display over Sydney Harbour. The Australian capital was the center of the celebrations, where the famous and traditional light show delighted the spectators with a colorful display. In the cities of Melbourne and Brisbane, massive events were also held to welcome the year 2024. In Russia, the New Year is one of the most important celebrations the nation celebrates, accompanied by incredible fireworks and light show in the square of the Palace of St. Petersburg and the Red Square of Moscow. Due to the large territorial extension of the country, only the Far East has initiated the most awaited celebration by the inhabitants. The Siberian region was the first to usher in the new calendar 2024. Now we go to Turkey, to Istanbul, the city that was once Constantinople. A submerged palace awaits us, a story of mythology and its modern retelling. A correspondent in Turkey, Yunus Soner, will take us to the subway and surreal.
Here we are in the center, the heart of the historical part of Istanbul, in front of a door that seems opaque, that seems insignificant, but hides one of the wonders of this city. The Turks call it the submerged palace. In Latin, it is called the Basilica Cistern. We feel a lot of humidity here because we are in a cistern. Built in the year 532 during the Byzantine Empire, and it was a cistern to keep the water, to serve the water to the palace in front of it. With its 80,000 tons of water storage capacity, the Basilica Cistern was the largest covered cistern in the city. It is a huge rectangular structure 140 meters long and 70 meters wide, occupying an area of approximately 10,000 square meters. One of the most interesting points in the Basilica Cistern, or the submerged palace, is the statue of Medusa, the mythological figure. There are two statues that are turned upside down, and the legend says that this has been done on purpose to avoid the effect of the stare of the Medusa. And this story of the Medusa and her gaze is told today in the submerged palace, and we will see it now.
I was very excited when the project came up, and it impresses me every time I see it. It is the product of a year of hard work in difficult conditions. It is not a normal stage. The cistern is so wet, damp and depressed. The atmosphere is already wonderful. The music, the costumes, the dance. We even have a fragrance made for this performance. The result is fascinating and makes us very happy.
We can describe the performance as a sustainable experience. The performance tells the story of Medusa with dances while offering a tour of the museum.
According to one of the mythological narratives, Medusa was a woman of radiant beauty who lived in the temple and served Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war. Poseidon, god of the seas, was the husband of Athena. Poseidon was attracted to the beauty of Medusa. One day, Poseidon raped Medusa. Realizing the profanation, Athena punished Medusa, transforming her into a snake-haired creature. From then on, Medusa petrified anyone who looked at her.
Medusa is the first victim of female aberration in mythology. If we interpret it spiritually, the awakening of all women and females in the world begins right now. Being punished by a woman for a crime she didn't commit can also be interpreted as a betrayal of the sisterhood. Tonight, Medusa responds to this betrayal and injustice with her scream. I think the message that comes out of the story is that women who have been aggrieved have to speak up and they have to scream.
In the following part of the story, Perseus cut off Medusa's head and defeated many enemies using his stare. When Perseus killed Medusa, Pegasus was born from her womb. Pegasus immediately took to flight, climbed the mountain of Olympus, and began to serve Zeus, father of Athena. Meanwhile, statues of Medusa in the submerged palace continue to abduct visitors.
In 2023, China successfully launched over 200 spacecraft in over 60 space missions, setting a new record. Within the next 5 years, the number of China's satellites is expected to reach 1,200, and they will be providing highly efficient and high-performance information services to users in traditional and emerging markets. Meanwhile, the National Space Laboratory is officially in operation with 110 space science research and application projects in orbit on space life science and human body research, and microgravity physics and new space technologies. So far, the National Space Lab has gathered over 100 terabytes of original data and has downloaded 300 experimental examples. Clashes between Myanmar's ruling junta and opposition fighters are increasingly intensifying. According to local media, the ruling junta in power since February 2021 increased its attacks in the northwest, central and south of the country. Sources also claim that the ruling junta increased airstrikes against provinces controlled by the opposition. The information details that in the city of Lao Cai, near the border with China, clashes have intensified, forcing citizens to leave the city. The conflict in Myanmar has lasted since 2021 following a coup d'etat that brought a military junta into power and prompted the rejection of armed groups in the country. In Mali on Friday, local television reported that the UN mission handed over control of one of its last major camps in the northern Timbuktu region to local de facto authorities. The MINUSMA mission was originally due to hand over its Gao and Timbuktu bases to Malian authorities in January. Mali's military junta had demanded MINUSMA withdraw immediately last June amid deteriorating relations. MINUSMA suffered some 180 fatalities over the 10 years it has tried to keep the peace in the troubled Sahel nation. The precarious security situation in the region has precipitated a speedier pullout from Timbuktu. The UN Security Council ended the roughly 15,000-strong mission's mandate on June 30th and gave it December 31st deadline to pull out. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.